Good afternoon, evening, my apology. Good evening, everyone. We are a few seconds away from going live and with the start of our 2020-21 spring parent input meeting. So I will wait a few more seconds to give others an opportunity to join us before we get started. For those of you who have logged in, thank you for being on time. All right, so it is 6 o'clock. I do believe we have at least one visitor at the moment. So in an effort to give others a few seconds or minutes to join, I will wait until about 6:01, 6:02 before we officially get started. All right, for those of you who just joined us, we are going to wait another minute or so before we get started. This evening's meeting will not be a lengthy meeting, but I'm certainly looking forward to sharing some updates with everyone, as well as hopefully having some good conversation via the chat with any questions that you might have, whether they pertain to the input meeting itself, around our Title I protocols and guidelines, or anything else in light of the very challenging year that we have had. Anything else that you would like to discuss or ask about Oakland, I will be more than happy to engage in some good dialogue with you guys this evening. All right, so the time is now 6:02. My apology again for I will have to read a few things to you also. Apology in advance for that. For those who have joined us, please use the chat feature to ask any questions or make any comments that you might have as I go through the slides this evening. All right, so again, welcome to our 2021 Spring Parent Input Meeting. We're going to begin by outlining a few facts about our wonderful school. Oakland Elementary School, for those of you who are not aware, is a Title I school. We are a school-wide Title I school, which basically means that the additional funds that we receive are meant to benefit every single student and staff member in our building. And we'll talk more about some specifics in subsequent slides. Title I schools are determined by the percentage of students receiving free or reduced lunch. So I have not received our percentages for this current school year, but entering into the 2021 school year, Oakland was just below 80% with regards to the percentage of students who were receiving free or reduced lunch. And so that designation, or that percentage alone, determines whether or not a school is designated as a Title I school. For any additional information around that information, please visit our school's webpage. We have a link to some other documents that speak to our status as a Title I school and what that means. For information beyond what we offer through our webpage, in addition to calling and speaking with an administrator at any time for additional information, you could also visit the www.ed.gov/ESSA, ESSA. You can visit that government site there for additional information and also access to additional websites and links that speak to Title I designated schools. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our school-wide plan and goal for the current school year. A detailed copy of our plan and also our goals can be found on our school's website. Those documents will highlight the academic needs of our students and our focus and plan on how we will utilize those Title I funds to close the achievement gap. Going into or entering into the 2021 school year, for those of you who attended this meeting last spring, this number will not surprise you, but Oakland's Ccrpi score, the most recent Ccrpi score, my apology, was 71.3. And year over year, that represented about a 10-point gain from the previous year. So when I began at Oakland, Oakland was certainly trending in the right direction. As you all know, that Ccrpi score on the academic performance side is derived heavily from our state assessment, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, the Georgia milestones, and more specifically, the performance of subgroups within our particular school, whether those are academic-based subgroups or subgroups that are defined demographically by race. Our current goals from our continuous school improvement plan are as follows. The two primary academic goals that we focused on going into this year was, centering our efforts around increasing the overall percentage of 1st through 5th grade students who would meet or exceed their projected growth on our MAP assessment, which is the Measures of Academic Progress assessment. That assessment is given 3 times per year, and I'll outline that in a little bit more detail here shortly. But our first academic goal in the area of math around that particular assessment was to increase the overall percentage of students performing at proficient or meeting their projected growth to 70%. And that was in the area of math. And in the area of reading, we mirrored or replicated that same goal. So again, just to talk about that in a little bit more detail, our MAP assessment is a system-wide benchmark assessment that is not only an assessment that is used in Henry County and in districts across the state of Georgia, but it is also a nationally norm referenced assessment. So you get a very good picture, a clear picture of how your students are performing against other students, not only within our district, our state, but most importantly across our nation. And so it is a very important assessment that we take 3 times a year. The assessment is administered in the fall, again in the winter, about a mid-year assessment, and then we wrap up with a spring assessment. And we're currently in that assessment window right now. So we use that data over the course of the school year to really get a glimpse into how not only our students are performing, but how well are we progressing towards that 70% goal. As you all know, this year has been a very unique year. In light of the pandemic, Oakland has consistently or continuously averaged somewhere between 30 to 35% of our students being on campus, and that's versus the number of students who are enrolled in our building. Right now, we are just above 800 students enrolled. So to put that in actual numbers, on a daily basis, we have anywhere from 240 to about 280 students on campus. So when you think about the use of benchmark assessment data to plan and project and to determine how well we are providing instructional support to our students, this year was a very difficult year to really ascertain with a great degree of confidence how our students are performing, because a significant number of our students are participating in these assessments as well as their daily instruction from home. And so we have unfortunately seen in some areas some data that is kind of skewed, that we feel is skewed in a higher performance than what the previous year or years data, depending upon how long those students have been in the building. That previous year or years data certainly did not speak to such a huge increase that we have seen in the performance of some of our students. So I shared that with you in essence to say that as we move into next school year, it is very likely that we will either continue with this same goal of having 70% of our students meet or exceed their projected growth on that benchmark assessment in both reading and math, or at the very least, we will do a combination of that particular goal versus or against current performance and look at an average of the two. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking to you about those two goals, but most importantly, the impact that the pandemic has had in our ability to rely heavily on that particular set of data. Many of you are aware, especially if you're third, fourth, or fifth grade parents, you have received significant communication from our assistant principal, Dr. Walden, who is our school test coordinator. This year, we will be taking the Georgia Milestones assessment as we're actually preparing to begin that assessment with fifth grade on next week. So I am certainly curious to see how our students perform, as that assessment will not be administered remotely. Students will have to be on campus to participate in that assessment. All right, so review of our parent and family engagement plan. This particular plan is not a plan that we develop in isolation. It is developed jointly with parents of each and every child, or I should say that the parents of every child who attends Oakland has an opportunity to allow their voice to be heard with regards to the development of that engagement plan. And that is very critical and very, very transparent, being very transparent here when I say to you that I think that is an area that we certainly need to improve upon. Previous meetings and certainly those opportunities for parents to provide input have fallen short of my expectation. And so I would love to hear from parents, that those of you who are present today in the chat box, or you can email me or call and speak with myself or one of our assistant principals, and also Ms. Clark, who will talk a little bit about her and her role here shortly. And chime in and let us know, what are some things that you feel we can do differently, some things we could do better, some things that have worked in the past, maybe in a school you attended that was a Title I school inside of Henry School or outside of Henry County schools, because we certainly recognize that we need your voices and we need to strengthen, this partnership between school and home. And so anything we can do in that area, we certainly are willing to investigate and to partner with you to improve upon those practices. To continue sort of outlining that engagement plan, the plan itself basically describes how the school will carry out our parent and family engagement requirements, because as a Title I school, we are required to capture your voices, as I stated earlier, with regards to what are we doing moving forward that's working, and what do we need to do differently, all for the purpose of improving upon our practices with the hopes of improving upon student performance. And so that particular requirement also includes the development of a school parent compact. Components of our plan that need your input in real time right now, as well as into the coming days and weeks. Preferred meeting days and times. Let us know the days and times that work best for you. Also the meeting formats. I think one of the highlights, I would say, of if there has been one on the school side with regards to this pandemic, is really forced us to rethink how we engage and how we make ourselves available to our parents. And I, for one, can say that it has been pretty powerful to schedule and also participate in parent conferences that have been held virtually, because we are able to more easily adjust our schedules oftentimes as a school than a parent may be able to adjust their schedule, whether it is work or other responsibilities that they might have. So it's been pretty awesome to allow that flexibility and the use of Google Meet or Zoom for those particular meetings virtually. I think that is something that we certainly need to capitalize on moving forward. Certainly as we all hope and pray that this pandemic, gets better and we find ourselves in something that looks, more normal as compared to the way things were prior to the pandemic. So I think that we've learned that there's an opportunity here for us to be creative in how we engage with you guys moving forward. And so I'm excited about building upon, that. And also a very important component of that plan, that school parent compact and engagement plan, is dialogue and some rich conversations and actions and protocols and steps around how the school can prevent participation barriers, such as transportation and childcare. What are some things that we can do creatively? That's one of the blessings, again, of being a Title I school is, we have some funds that allow us to get creative in how we support families and again, all for the purpose of making sure that we are adequately supporting our students. So, if you personally are experiencing some barriers in that area, or of other families of Oakland families who are experiencing barriers with transportation and childcare and things of that nature, let us know. Make your voice heard around those particular barriers so that we can begin to partner with you guys and brainstorm, some ideas around how can we make the impact of those barriers less on our parents. A school parent compact is a written agreement between the school, the students, and the parents of children participating in Title I programs that identifies and outlines the activities that the parents, school staff, and students will undertake to build and develop a partnership for the purpose of helping children achieve to the state's high academic standards, and just as important to your high academic standards as well as to the high academic standards that we hold for students as a staff and school community. The components of our compact that need your input in this regard or in this area specifically, what are some ways that parents and the school staff and students can share that responsibility? I often view, especially at the elementary level, I've been elementary education my entire career. When we talk about that partnership and that relationship, I view it as sort of a way to triangulate, and connect students, home, and the school. It is truly a partnership. And if any one of those areas are lacking, then typically the impact of that partnership certainly suffers as a result. So again, when we talk about that agreement, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from your children. We certainly open dialogue with the staff on a regular basis, around what can we do to share that responsibility for improving student performance. Another component in this area that we need input from you around is how all stakeholders will build and develop that partnership moving forward, specifically around state assessments and district benchmarks, those academic performance pieces that speak directly to those academic goals that we have. And this year, it has been very important for us to also focus on the social emotional side. I know we, as a school, things typically start data-wise with academic performance, but we certainly recognize, prior to the pandemic, the social emotional needs of our students, but very important to us right now in real time and currently and moving forward is what are we doing to positively support students and our families and our staff and ourselves, around social emotional needs. So that also was a goal that was built into our continuous school improvement plan. And I certainly foresee that being a goal that we will carry over into next year. So again, when we start talking about your input, we need to hear what your needs are. What are the needs of your family? What are the needs of your students? What are some things that you feel that we can do to, again, develop that partnership in that area so that we can make sure our students are progressing in all areas beyond just their academic performance. So let's talk a little bit about how we spent some of our Title I funds this year, or have spent Title I funds this year. And I'm excited because we've actually enhanced, this part of the use of those funds, versus my first year at Oakland. We were able to be a little bit more creative. And last year, my goal was just to get in and see how those funds were being used. And a lot of the budget had already been set or at least proposed. And I made very few changes staff-wise or use of resources and how we're spending that money and what voices we're capturing with regards to how we're budgeting, use of those additional funds to support students and teachers and all of the staff members in our community. So I'm excited to share with you that we've expanded upon the use of those funds a little bit. So as a Title I school, we are allocated additional supplemental funds to support our students who are academically at risk. During this school year, and I want to make a comparison for you. So just on the staffing side, when I came into Oakland last year, Title I funds were being used to take care of the salaries of 3 instructional coaches. One of those coaches was for math, one for literacy/reading, and the other was for science. And I, through observation, very quickly ascertained that we could make better use of those funds with regards to that science position. I felt like we weren't really maximizing a significant, investment in personnel, in the area of science. So initially, I took that position and created 2 literacy coaches versus 1 literacy coach and 1 science coach, because data was really revealing to me that our students collectively across our school needed more support, more rigorous support around the area of literacy. Also, in that vein, our district had invested in 2 very important programs on the kindergarten through 2nd grade side. It was the early literacy model that's built around strengthening phonics for our students. And on the 3rd through 5th grade side, it was built around and continues to be built around what's called the intensive reading model. So what I did with the creation of the 2nd literacy coach position, as opposed to one person having to shoulder the very heavy lift of supporting 2 critical and very detailed programs, I assigned one to the 3-5 intensive reading model and the other to the K2 early literacy model. And unfortunately, the pandemic happened in March, and school ended, and so I wasn't able really to see that transition, through to fruition. But I can certainly say that initially we were beginning to see significant improvement as far as the impact and how those coaches could support teachers who in turn were supporting students in that model. So moving forward this year, what we're going to do is, this year we have the math coach, we have the literacy coach, and I took the science coach that had been repurposed as a literacy coach this year. And because of our growth, and we had earned additional homerooms in our 1st and 3rd grade levels, it created the need for an additional special in our rotation. So we put our minds together, our brains together, and that particular person, is phenomenal in the area of science. And so we were able to create what's called an applied science lab and made that a part of our instructional or specials rotation each day. And that's probably been one of the single most impactful, I would say, improvements this school year, to witness and watch students be able to take, a concept like science that requires, at the elementary level, a lot of hands-on, touching and feeling and really diving into those particular concepts, to be able to see them expand upon what they're learning in their classroom and to go into a separate environment and put those things into practice, and to watch their vocabulary around science build and watch their excitement around science build. I walked into that classroom today, and today was Earth Day, so it was pretty awesome to watch those students. It was a kindergarten class, and to watch them to be able to get their hands dirty, with the planting of seeds and talking about life cycles and all of those things. So it's been pretty cool to see that, and my goal is to continue with that particular lab on next year. And so getting back to how we're continuing to use those funds, we also have 1 instructional title instructional para. And I added this year, back in December, we began to have conversations around what can we do to better support our kindergarten and first grade students, because what we recognized was that our current first graders, were coming off of a year that was interrupted by the pandemic, last spring. And so to go from a major interruption in March, through a full summer, and then to begin the year with that learning interrupted, had a significant impact. And we were beginning to see that impact in a lot of the data that we were looking at with that first grade group. A lot of those, phonics based skills that they would have picked up on, something as simple as letter recognition and basic letter sounds. We were, observing that there was some struggle in that regard. And certainly the same would hold true for our kindergarten students. The biggest difference being, a lot of those babies were either in pre-K in some program or not. Some of those babies were just going from daycare or home right into a kindergarten classroom. And so what we decided to do, there were some additional funds that I was able to repurpose. And we were very fortunate. We were able to bring in a retired teacher, a lady who just retired in December from an elementary school in Clayton County. And we hired her as our Title I tutor. And so she works specifically with an identified group of kindergarten and first graders. And she is in our building, every day for a total of about 4 hours, with about 3 of those hours being designated specifically to supporting our kindergarten and first grade students. And the beauty of that is we're able to support those students in small groups. So she's able to pull them out of their home rooms, and we do so at a time, that in which they're not missing, a lot of their core instruction from their homeroom teacher. But just to see the growth that those students have been able to make over a short period of time is not only encouraging, but it said to me that this is something that we need to figure out a way to invest in moving into next school year. And so I am committed to doing that and to continuing to purpose or designate funds towards that purpose, I should say. So Ms. Lemon, who is our title tutor, she and I have already spoken about how we can continue that relationship moving into next year. So having shared that with you on the staffing side, in the chat box, if you don't mind, or again, email, phone call later, my question to you is, are there any additional resources or activities that you would like to see us use our Title I funds on? And so again, I'll ask that question a second time to make sure you all heard it. Are there any additional allowable, and I can talk to you guys, and Ms. Clark can talk to you guys about what allowable means in this regard, but are there any additional allowable resources or activities that you would like to see us use our Title I funds on moving into next year? Certainly want to hear your voices around that. Additional funds for parent engagement. In addition to supporting our students, we also set aside funds to support efforts to build the capacity of our families in order to for them to support learning at home. For this current school year, we use Title I funds to support our parent and family engagement program by number one, and I hope that she's with us this evening, but Ms. Stacy Clark, I think I've shared with many of you, this is wrapping up about my 19th year. It's amazing how quickly time moves, but 19th year in elementary education. And 2 of those years were outside of Title I schools, and that was prior to joining Oakland. And so all of my experience, for the most part, the bulk of my experience has been, working in Title I elementary schools. And I preface this next statement, because I want you all to hear directly from me that this is one of, if not the most phenomenal parent involvement professionals that I have had the pleasure of working with, and that's Ms. Stacy Clark. She is a tremendous asset, not only to our school and our students, but most importantly to our parents and our greater, school community. The relationships that she has not only, built, but been able to nurture has certainly, resulted in some phenomenal things happening for our school. And so her salary is paid for through Title I funds in the same way that the instructional coaches and tutor that I outlined earlier, their salaries are paid for through the use of those funds. Also, we earmark those funds, and Ms. Clark is really responsible for how those funds are used in this regard. But and investing in resources for our families to use at home. We have a family resource center. If any of you, were with us prior to the pandemic, before we had to close the doors and you had to schedule an appointment and all of that unfortunate stuff that we're dealing with right now, if you've had an opportunity to see that family resource room or center, it is certainly a sight to behold. And, we're going to continue to invest in it. I am constantly asking Ms. Clark, what can we do to improve upon it? What resources do you need? And we for the 2 years that I've been there, and we will continue to do this, start each conversation around what the needs are for our parents. What are parents saying to you that they would like to see made available to them that we don't currently have? And if those things certainly fall within the guidelines, then we do our best to make sure that funds are available for the purchase of those resources. So on the parent engagement side, those are the two big areas that we invest in using those Title I funds. And so again, that's for the salary of Ms. Clark, as well as, and equally important to us, the purchasing of resources for you guys to use at home to support your babies there. So question, and again, in the chat, email, phone call later, are there any additional allowable parent and family resource activities that you would like to see us use our Title I funds on? So again, quick summary of that question is there anything else that we can purchase, and we'll help define allowable when we get to that point. Don't worry about what's allowable and not right now. We're trying to figure that out. But what is it that you need? What is it that we can add to that resource room that would be beneficial to you? And a side note, although we are sort of limited in the freedom and access that parents have to that room, I should have started by reminding everyone that you can certainly schedule an appointment to come up to the school and socially distance, of course, and meet with Ms. Clark and get an opportunity to peruse what resources we have currently, and check out resources and all of those good things. It is, it's like a library for parents, basically. And so I'm excited to hear from you guys with regards to what is it that we can, that you need, that we can do to enhance that particular resource for our families. All right, building staff capacity is another big area that we are using, funds, for Title I funds for. As a Title I school, we certainly recognize the importance of educating our teachers. They're in the trenches. I always tell them, you're at the forefront of this work. We can have all of these great ideas and earmark all of these resources and funds for the purchase of resources, but ultimately, the bulk of the effectiveness or how effective those resources are falls on the shoulders of our teachers. And so for those who have worked with me for the previous 2 years, they know that I talk a lot about building capacity. Oftentimes we give teachers a set of resources and just say, go forth and do. And we often also fail to build capacity, in those very individuals who will be responsible for directly supporting your babies and our babies. So it's important to me that we, make sure that we're, earmarking a significant or adequate, I should say, portion of our Title I funds towards doing just that, building staff capacity. And we also use those funds for specialized instructional support, personnel, administration, and all other staff. And we've talked about, using the funds to assist parents and building up that value and contributions of our parents moving forward. So during this current school year, 3 big focal points around building capacity of our staff was training them around, and this has kind of been a continuation of an effort since I've been at Oakland, but still building capacity around, how to effectively communicate with parents. And certainly in during this pandemic, that has been very important. I started the year reminding our staff that it was going to be important for them to be very, very flexible, and so we have continued to just remind and reiterate that very important part of our work this year. And so the use of Title I funds, or at least having those funds available to develop teachers and build their capacity through professional development, is certainly a huge benefit for Oakland. Another area that we're working to build staff capacity around is this important piece of creating a welcoming environment. When I walked into Oakland, and some of you may know this story, but we began our year by partnering with Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is an organization that I've always admired, just their customer service. And when I became principal of Oakland, I immediately, set out to see how we could, capitalize and maybe, mimic, some of those things. And so for the previous two pre-planning portions of our school year, the start of our school year, we have had a representative from that organization, that wonderful company, come over and just talk around what it means to go the extra mile and what it means to create a welcoming environment from the time a parent pulls into our parking lot. The aesthetics, for those of you who have been around Oakland for a number of years, hopefully you continue to appreciate, the aesthetics and the investment that we have made just from the parking lot itself and the front entrance and those things. And certainly that has to continue. That impression has to continue, at least, as parents and other stakeholders enter into the doors of Oakland. And so we are constantly having that conversation and trying to build capacity around that very important component of our day. And lastly, in assisting, building capacity, staff capacity around assisting parents with how they help their child plan for their future. I think that's something that sometimes we fall short of at the elementary level, is the importance of forward thinking, around planning and preparation. You guys are learning, if you're new parents, these years come and go very quickly. And so what are the conversations that we're having around as a school around, how do we help parents plan for the future of their son or daughter, and what are we doing very intentionally, I should say, in that area. So question for you around that particular component. Do you have any topics or activities that you would like for us to discuss with our staff? And this is, all of these questions are important, but this is certainly one. I hope to get a lot of feedback on all of them, but to get your voices and capture your voices around, what are those things as a parent that you feel we need to be building staff capacity around? No one knows you better than you. We certainly do our best to capture voices from our staff, but this is a great opportunity for you to tell us, what are those very important and critical areas that you feel our staff may need some capacity building around. Okay, so in the chat box, and again, via email or phone call would suffice. All right, so parent input opportunity. I want you to take a moment to provide input on the topics discussed below. I'm going to see if I can copy this particular link, and then I will paste it into the chat here momentarily. But just a quick review. We need your input around our Title I school-wide plan. And right now that input would be around the current plan, but certainly speaking to what you would like to see us focus on moving forward into the 21-22 school year. Input specifically on that parent and family engagement plan, the school parent compact, the Title I budget, including the parent and family engagement budget, and around building staff capacity. So I'm going to paste the link there. Again, you can use that space to share your thoughts and your voices. It doesn't have to be just this evening. If you think of something over the weekend, moving into the month of May, over the course of the summer, we certainly just want to hear your voices. So let me minimize this screen and see if I can paste this link into the chat box here. All right. All right. So, and I'm also looking in the comment section here. Ms. Clark, if you are on board, you all will learn that, I wouldn't say that I am challenged in the area of technology, but I'm not a big social media person. So I see that we have 4 comments, and I'm trying to locate. There we go. All right. So I see we have, okay, I think that is from Ms. Clark there. I'm just looking through. Mr. Blanton, thank you so much, sir, for being present. Ms. Freeman, thank you. Can Title I funds be used to purchase musical instruments? And so in and of itself, no. However, there is the opportunity for us to be creative in how we write that into our CCIP, which is our continuous school improvement plan. And so I'm excited. We actually have hired, let me back up. This is my second year again, and each of the 2 years we've had a new music teacher. And in each of those interviews and subsequent hires of those 2 young ladies, we have spent some time together talking about my expectations and my vision and my hope for our music program. I feel like we got off to a pretty good start the first year. You know, we were able to incorporate a chorus into our an OKE chorus, not just the district honors chorus, but an OKE chorus. That group was able to go and perform at before one of our board meetings. And unfortunately, you know, circumstances did not allow that young lady to remain. And we're in the same boat this year. So we were fortunate to hire just last week a veteran teacher who is actually a professional violinist. She's coming to us from New Hampshire. And one of the things that we talked about was she's always worked in Title I schools. She has done some phenomenal things to build, you know, to move a music class into a music program, which is what I envision for Oakland. And I know very well why you're asking that question, because I know one of your grandbabies, if not both, are involved in music. And so we are already looking at some creative ways to partner with some of our partners in ed around bringing musical instruments in. We're going to start with something very simple because it doesn't cost as much. But I don't know if many of you are aware of this phenomena of bucket drumming that seems to be picking up steam. And so we're going to start the year with a significant infusion of bucket drumming into our program. And I think that's something that it will excite all, you know, most if not all of our students. But to go back to your original question, you know, typically you don't find the use of Title I funds towards the purchasing of musical instruments. But again, if we feel the need to creatively infuse that into our plan, which I am considering and investigating, even if it's just a small purchase to begin our year, then that's something that is certainly on the table. So, Mr. Blanton, I would love to continue that conversation with you. If you know of some organizations, you know, that are willing to either offer up, you know, used instruments, or maybe even sell us instruments, you know, at a fraction of the cost that it would typically take to purchase those. And I would certainly love to have that conversation with you, but I appreciate that question. And I don't see any other questions in the chat. So it's 6:43. I'll hang around until 6:45. If any of you have additional questions that you would like to ask, I'll be watching the chat. If not, I just want to say to you again, thank you for all that you do. You know, beyond just showing up here this evening, you know, for a 6 o'clock conversation, you know, with Mr. Grant from his basement. But you know, just for toughing it out. I told someone the other day, I don't envy, you know, parents of elementary age children in the current climate, and then with the pandemic on top of that. You know, my wife and I are in year 2 of being empty nesters, and so, you know, our boys are off and you know, spreading their wings. And so the fact that you guys have had to endure, you know, in my estimation, you know, the most challenging year that I've ever experienced in my career, hats off to you. And so just know, if there's anything that I can do, that the school can do to support you, if there's something that we need to do better, I want to hear your voice and your voices around, you know, that particular thing. Okay. All right, so we're at 6:44. I know we're getting close to the 6:45 mark, but I'll continue to watch the chat for any additional questions or comments. And a quick reminder before we hit the 6:45 mark, don't forget that there's no school tomorrow for our students. Tomorrow is a teacher work day, so we will see your babies back in the building on Monday. And also don't forget that Monday will commence the beginning of our state assessment. Fifth grade will test the week of the 26th. Fourth grade will test the week of May 3rd, and then our third graders will test the week of May 10th. Be on the lookout also for information. We're going to have end of year celebrations, and those will be done virtually. We're going to do something, creative for our fifth grade group, and also for our kindergartners, as we traditionally have a promotion ceremony for those students. And so we're working on those things currently, and teachers will spend a lot of time tomorrow getting prepared for those events. All right. Mr. Blanton, you're welcome. Absolutely, absolutely. I think that is awesome, and so that is certainly my goal, Mr. Blanton. I am excited about bringing Ms. Aleskis into our school community, and I think she's a person who's going to be committed to moving that from a music class, to a music program. So I cannot wait to see the impact that that has on our school, but most importantly on the greater Oakland community. All right, the time is 6:46. Thank you again. Love you all. I appreciate everything that you do. I hope to hear more from you in the coming days and weeks around how you think we can improve upon our work at Oakland Elementary. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe. Have a great Friday and an even greater weekend. Thank you all.